Hello everyone. Today we are making the bento box. So we are making another quilt block today and we're using three different colors. So we have the yellow batik, the purple batik, and then we have this gray cotton. I've separated everything into sizes so that I know what I'm doing. And we are going to put this together. This is going to act like our background, and then these are going to be our colors. I need to check. Okay, that looks a lot clearer. Okay, so we are going to put this together, and the colors are, for this light fabric, we need two 2.5 by 5.25 inch strips. We need four 2.5 by 4.5 inch strips. We need two 2.5 by 6.5 inch strips. For this color, we need two 2.5 inch strips by 5.25. We need one. I'm sorry, we need one of these. We need two 2.5 by 4.5. Let's get the order right. This is one. This is the 4.5. And then this is the two 2.5 by 6.5. And then we need, for this one, we need one 2.5 by 5.5 and two 2.5 by 4.5. I have all my orders right. Okay, so we're going to assemble the blocks, and we're going to start by making a block corner that will be 6.5 by 6.5. So we're going to take one of these, and one of these, and we're going to sew those together. Okay, so we're going to end up, this is going to be a strip unit. So we're going to have this and this. If you choose, you can press those seams open. And then this is 6 to this. So we're going to do this to the white. I'm getting my colors mixed up because I should have called this yellow. Okay. So once this is sewn together, we can just, and I'm taking my fingers and just kind of finger pressing this open. Because it's batik, it'll want to open up for me a lot more than the, I am just not having a good day with this at all. We're going to try this again. This is on the wrong side. Let's try that again. This is a gray, and it looks the same on both sides, but it's not. So I'm taking a light and a yellow, the 5 1/4 inch pieces, and I'm sewing them together, right sides together. Before, I did right side and wrong side, and I had to take that apart. So let's try that again. Now, we open this up, and I can finger press that. I'll take this to my iron and give it a good press. Let me slide these out of the way. And then what is suggested, let's use a ruler, smaller ruler. We're going to take this, and this should be 4 1/2. So 2 1/2 plus 2 1/2 equals 5. And if you take the 1/4 inch seam allowance from each of the colors, that gives you 4 1/2. So you square up one of the sides, and then what we're going to do is cut these into 2 1/2 inch strips. So we are doing a mini version of a strip piece. And make sure everything lines up. Measure twice, cut once, 2 1/2, and 2 1/2. And I think they gave you like 5 1/4, just because if you're like me, you might mess up. And it gives you a little extra wiggle room. Okay, so then you should have a unit that looks like this. Okay, and then I need a 2 inch by 4 1/2, and I need this because they should line up, which will give me this. I want to make sure that it's in the directions that it should go into. And then I'm going to sew these together. So everything should match up, and then I can take it to the machine. And again, you can press these open if you prefer. Just using my finger because I can give it a good finger press. And then I can take it to my iron and give it a good press with the iron. So that's one. And then let's do the other one. And so again, this is making a bento box. And we're starting with one of the units first. And because I didn't pay attention to my measurements, I did do one thing wrong. I didn't pay attention to the size of those pieces. I did do one thing wrong, and I'll rip that out in a minute. So I have two pieces that look like this. Okay. I need these two pieces. And I'm going to take a 4.5, 2.5 by 4.5, and I'm going to add it to that side. And then I'm going to take the 6.5, and I'm going to pull this one out because I did that wrong. Because I wasn't paying attention. And we're going to add those to the top. And so then we'll have units that look like that. Okay? So let's add these two. Make sure that I'm paying attention this time so that we're going in the right directions for our fabrics. And then let's add these. So I'm trying real hard to pick some easy blocks in the beginning, and then we will pick harder blocks as we go. And the great thing about the harder block is it's not a harder block, it's just a couple more pieces that you have to cut and maneuver. But once you get the hang of the easier blocks, the harder blocks don't seem as challenging. And we can open these up. And again, I'm just using my fingers to press them open. And then I can add this one. And they all should line up if I cut them correctly and if I'm using a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so after we finish this, we just have the purple blocks to make, and then we'll be finished. So these are quick and easy blocks, and it wouldn't even have taken me a half an hour to do it if I hadn't confused myself with the first two cuts. And that's why, like, some people will use will mark their, like, clippies, alpha clippies, to mark their pieces so they wouldn't have gotten confused like I did. Or I should say mixed up. I won't say I was confused. Okay. So the first quarter of the block is done. The first half, I should say, first 2/4 of the block is done. And we just have to press these open. The block should measure, when it is finished, 6 and a half. So 6.5 plus 6.5 is 13. Take out a 1/2 inch for the 1/4 inch seams. You would have a 12.5 inch finished block. Okay. And you can use your ruler to measure that. And I'm going to get it right. The right way. So I will find my 6.5 inch line, my 6.5 inch line, and make sure that it measures out correctly. And if it doesn't, I would just trim off the excess. And it's not much. Okay, so this is one of the blocks, or one of the units. The other one, did I sew this all right? Yep, okay. Turned it upside down and I was like, oh no. So again, just taking my finger to finger press it open. And I can take it to my iron and just press that. Okay. And again, take the time to line it up. 6.5 by 6.5. And let's just get rid of all that excess. And it's not much. That's the excess. And that's the second block. Okay. So it's almost like making a log cabin. Okay. So we have these pieces, we have this one, we have these, and we have this. And this is almost going to be the reverse. So we're going to bring these two together because now we know what we're doing. And so we'll take that, cut that little excess off. We'll open this up. Use our fingers to finger press. Take this over to our ironing board and press that. Okay, nice and flat. We'll take our ruler, our square. We'll line this up. And we're just trimming up one edge, get it nice and straight. And we need 2 blocks, 2.5 by 4.5. One. I'm just trying to make sure that I have everything straight. And that's why when I cut, I concentrate just a little bit more, because the straighter and the more accurate I am, the better the final product. Okay, a little bit off, and we have these 2 blocks. These blocks are going to sit like this, and then we're going to add these, and then we're going to add these, And then we're going to add these. And then that'll be the second block. Okay, so we'll turn these down. And it helps to lay it out because then you see it better and you make less mistakes. But it's all, like I said, it's almost going together, like just like a log cabin. And then once we sew all of these, you're going to have 4 units that then we can sew together like a 4-patch and be finished the block. And I'm just using my finger to finger press that open. Again, just take it to my iron and give it a press. Okay, and this one goes on here like this. And I'm just cutting one, I'm sewing one and cutting off the chain. Sewing one and cutting off the chain. Okay, and then we'll add this one. So I'm adding the 4.5-inch units onto each one of those sides. One in the gray and one in the purple. We'll open that up. And again, I mean, if I can finger press it, that's just to help it open up a little bit so that I can just set the iron on top. And then last but not least, this goes on top of this. And it's just like going over the seams, like you're almost like sealing the seams, if you will. So we're just opening this up. And I told you, like, this takes, and it really doesn't take that long to do. It'll take me longer to explain it, whoops, than it does to sew. Okay. Let's open this one. And again, you can press it, like you could have pressed it all to the dark side. I'm choosing to press them open. So you make that decision how you want to press them. water out the way because somebody will knock it down, and that somebody is me. Just get that nice and flat. And let's pull this one out. And we just want to open that seam up. Okay. So then you have these two blocks. Again, we're going to use our ruler. These should measure 6.5. Make sure everything lines up. Measure twice. Cut once. So a little more edgy than the other one. That's one. And they should be close. Like, you should not be a 1/4 inch off. Really, you shouldn't even be like 1/8 of an inch off. You should be really, really close. Okay. So now you have a block that you're going to rotate the colors, opposite corners, and it's going to look like that. So we're going to treat this like a 4-patch, and we're just going to lay piece over piece, sew down, and then sew those two together. The seams should match up, so we're going to use clips. And that's just to help us to get the most accurate block. There's nothing worse than your seams not lining up when they're supposed to line up. Using my finger to hold it down. And then let's do the same thing for this side. Line our seams up. Take time to line them up. And then take it to the machine and stitch. Okay. And again, so I can see I was a little off right there. I'm not happy with that. This came out perfect. So my question is, do I want to adjust it or is it going to matter? You can see it right here. If it's going to bother me, I'm going to adjust it. If it's not going to bother me, I'm going to leave it. And you already know I'm going to leave it. I don't need that. But if the seam should have, but I did do a little bit of pulling, so I'm not upset that that was offlined a little bit because I pulled it and I knew I pulled it. If I just would have thought it was my hand-eye coordination, I may actually feel the need to take it out. It's going to be the only block. It's not going to be that noticeable because of the white to the yellow, so I'm not going to worry about it. Okay. Now I'm going to try this time to make sure everything lines up. Again, I'm going to use my clips. Line up that center and clip. Then I'm going to find that seam and clip. I'm going to line up these seams and clip. Line up those two and clip. And line up these two and clip. And a lot of times if you watch me, you'll know I don't use that many clips, but because I have so many seams to line up, I prefer to clip it. Now let's turn this over. This is the seam, right? So close. Good job. Center, awesome. This side, awesome. And that side. So with the exception of that one piece that I shifted, everything else is lined up. So we'll open up the seam. And the great thing about this is that once you get the hang of the block, what you would do is chain stitch all of this. So if you were making the same block, whether it's out of scraps or the similar fabric over and over and over again, you would stack your pieces and you would arrange them in the order so that this process would go much faster for you. I see a couple threads that are peeking through and or are stuck on the fabric. Come down. I would use just a little bit of mist just to help that lay a little bit flatter. I don't want to use a lot of water or steam because I don't want to distort the block. I'm really getting that center because I just want to make sure. I have a 12 by 12, 12 by 12 and a half by 12 and a half. I can use that to square up the block. But even more important than squaring up this block or trimming up the block, I'm going to make sure that it's 12 and a half inches. And that's because if it's shorter than that, it's going to matter when I put all the blocks together. And I think I'm good on that side. Okay. And here we go. So we have the finished block. Let's take the thread out so I don't see that. My little pieces. So here is the finished block. And again, you could use any color that you like, any combination. All of your blocks could look like this if you're making a quilt out of just these. I'm making one block, and I love how these colors have turned out for this. And now this is block number 3 finished.